Today, a quick word about pacing yourself in the sports card hobby. Guys, how are we doing? It is the end of the week. We are almost to the weekend. Hope it's been an amazing one for you so far.
I feel pretty good too. I think I finally got some sleep.
As we've had a lot of exciting things going on in the hobby recently, whether it be company acquisitions or shows being busy or, auctions going nuts, I think it's always important to kind of just take a step back, though, and think about just that we should be pacing ourselves. I think hobby sustainability is really going to be a big focus for me and my channel here in 2023, just because we have some kind of odd economic times. We don't really know what's coming down the road. There's a lot of folks I know out there just looking at different polls online that are nervous about job loss, that are nervous about inflation, that are nervous about wages and all of these things. And so, I think it's always good to take a step back. Even though there's always exciting things to talk about within this hobby, it is an amazing hobby. There is a sustainability factor that we have to continue to talk about. I really think that we are in the golden age of collectibles. And you might be wondering, what the heck are you talking about, the golden age of collectibles? Well, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and to me, this was the greatest time ever for pop culture and kind of the collectibles that were born out of those decades.
One shall stand, one shall fall.
And I know that I'm biased, it's probably generational, but look at the movies and the shows that are being made today. A lot of it is based on 80s and 90s characters or shows or movies, outside of maybe the Marvel stuff that goes back to the 60s, the DC stuff. But still, the 80s, 90s really had a huge influence on what's going on today. And it will continue on with the next generation. When I look at my younger kids, it's still Super Mario Brothers. I was playing Super Mario Brothers in 1988 when I got my NES for Christmas. My 8-year-old is literally playing Legend of Zelda, the first one. NES on his Switch. He's playing Paper Mario and some of these new things, but he's also playing the retro games, as he likes to call them, and he's having a blast doing it. So this stuff is endless, and sports cards are right in there. You've got sports cards that go back over 100 years. There is kind of this endless supply of really, really cool stuff. Well, unless you're independently wealthy, trust fund baby, and I know there's some of you out there that are those, that, hey, spend away. You've got that disposable income, so you don't have to worry about a thing. But I think there's a lot of us that, fall into maybe that middle class-ish area, to where, yes, we've got some disposable income, but it can only go so far. There's only so many things. And the second you get back onto eBay or onto any specific auction house, man, there's always something cool to get. Speaking of things cool to get, shout out to today's video sponsor, GameDayLegends.com. Sports memorabilia at its finest. All the autographed helmets and the jerseys and all the cool stuff. We've got a promo code for 20% off site-wide. DAD is the promo code at checkout if you want to check out GameDayLegends.com. Something I've learned over the last 5 years in the hobby is my collecting tastes have really changed. Some of it is the same. I bought vintage football coming back in 2018, and I still buy vintage football today. So some of those things haven't changed, but I like to get into other things as they pop up. I learn about new things, different types of collectibles and different types of sports cards. You learn about a new set. And so that's the other thing, is if you're somebody that's new getting in or getting back in, there's so much to learn if you're just getting back in and you've been out of the game. And really, if your foray into cards when you were a youngster was 89 Upper Deck baseball or 89 Pro Set football, and then you kind of left it for 25, 30 years and then you're back in, or if you're a little bit younger than me, maybe it's the late 90s basketball cards, you'll find that there is a lot of sets, a lot of inserts and things that you had no idea even existed when you were 10, 12, 15 years old. And so there's a huge learning curve. You're not supposed to really know what you want right out of the gate. And a lot of the learning comes from buying stuff. You go out, you see something cool, you buy it, and then you're like, oh, maybe I don't want this anymore, and you sell it or you trade it. That's all part of what the hobby experience is. So I think that's kind of tough, because you'll hear from a lot of YouTubers or podcasters or anybody that talks about new people getting getting into the hobby, and it's always kind of have a plan, build a plan. Well, how do you build a plan if you've never experienced anything? How do you build a plan if you don't know anything about anything in this space? You've got to learn all that, and there will be kind of hits and misses. There will be bumps along the road. There's also just different things that happen to where you might have set amount of money in one thing, and then you're like, oh man, I like this so much better, and you've got to move out of this to get into that because, again, we don't have endless funds for this stuff. So you end up having to make tough decisions on things that you want to hold on to or get rid of, so forth. And that's all normal part of the sports card hobby. One thing that's fun too, as far as diversifying into different collecting groups. So if you have different players, different teams, or different characters, if it's non-sports, or even different collectibles, graded games, graded video games, is it puts you in touch with all sorts of other types of collectors. So this can happen a lot where if maybe you're just, collecting one particular player, you might have kind of your friend base, your hobby friend base around that one player. You're living in this bubble where everybody maybe agrees, or you got the insights from 5 people or 12 people that are in this group. Then if you venture off into other different spaces, you get different views on different collectibles or different players. You can use that to help you, but what's also cool, more friends, more friends to kind of bounce things off of. And that is always good. I've always been someone that's had friends in each group going back to high school. I was never really interested in being in one clique. I liked having friends in each of the cliques. And I think that's really served me well over time. Like one of my hobby friends, Rob, sports card therapist, says, find your wolf pack. And it could be multiple wolf packs. Does that make sense? Or maybe it's one wolf pack with people from different groups in that wolf pack. Anyway, I think that you get the point. There's a lot of people in the community, a lot of great people. You might not click with everybody, but that's normal. This is life. Whether you are in a sports card hobby or any other type of hobby, you're not necessarily going to get along with everybody. The one thing that is really cool, though, about the sports card hobby is even if you have nothing else in common, maybe politically, you're in completely opposite ends of the spectrum, you can agree on this particular thing. You can agree on these cards are awesome or this hobby's great. And so that is a really cool element that I don't think exists for a lot of people. If you think about it, especially in the United States, it's a very polarized place where it's like half the country believes one thing and half the country believes another. Actually, I think that there's a blend of things. I don't think that it's 50-50. It's just we have to vote one way or the other, so it makes it complicated. But my point is that, if you're just going based on that just kind of separates everybody right down the line just based on that. This is an opportunity to just, hey, cut all the serious stuff out, and here is a fun thing that we can zero in on. So if you're someone that's just getting in, or maybe you're thinking about getting in, you're not sure, you don't have to buy $1 million cards. You don't have to buy $1 cards. You don't have to buy a certain set of this, blah, blah, blah. You can do whatever the hell you want. That's what's great about this. You can do whatever you want. You map out your journey. It's your voyage. All right, guys. So cheers to sustainability in 2023. Hobby sustainability. That's what we're after. Stay healthy. Stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.